So you're trying to grab a perfect pair of sneakers for that person in your life who's a sneakerhead or maybe just needs a new pair of sneakers. And you don't want to go down to the local Payless and grab whatever pair of sneakers that the employee tells you to grab. Well, in today's video, I've compiled a list of sneakerhead sneakers that are all available right now for that person in your life who loves sneakers or just needs a new pair. And I've made sure to pick sneakers at every price point so that you can grab a pair that fits your budget. So without further ado, this is my holiday sneaker shopping gift guide for 2024. But let's start off this gift guide with shoes $50 and under. And of course, if you want to grab any of the pairs mentioned in today's video, I've made sure to link them through the YouTube shopping tab on your screen and in the description below. But the first pair of shoes to make the list is the Adidas Adilette Comfort. I know it's wintertime and slides are probably not on the top of your mind when you think of pairs of shoes to buy for a loved one, but genuinely a good comfy pair of slides that you can wear around the house or wear when you're getting the mail is one of the best things that you can pick up. And the reason that I picked the Adidas Adilette Slide Comfort in particular is because the price point is solid at just $35 and it's incredibly comfortable. The regular Adidas Adilette is fine, but it's a little bit stiff underneath your foot, and while yes, it might give you some more arch support if that's what you're looking for, the Adilette Comfort actually features a super soft and squishy foam footbed that really makes you feel like you're sinking into the shoe. And for years, the Adilette Slide Comfort has been my go-to shoe. I have multiple pairs. I keep it by the door, I keep it by my bed, so if I have to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night and it's cold on the tile, great pair of shoes to go with. I know I'm getting a bunch of comments right now. You might even be typing this right now. Slides aren't shoes. Slides are shoes. It's anything you put in your foot is a shoe, generally. Next up is the Crocs Classic Clog. Now, I'm sure you've known about Crocs for years. They've been around forever at this point, but only recently they've started to become cool. Now, to be fair, not every pair of Crocs is cool, but most of the classic clogs can be worn casually and no one's gonna bat an eye at you. Plus, they're really comfortable and usually only $50 or below. 4 years ago, as a sneakerhead, I never would have thought that a pair of Lightning McQueen Crocs would have completely sold out and resold, but that's the world that we live in, and Crocs are just hot right now. I don't know how else to say it. As someone who has a growing Crocs collection, I do really appreciate how they feel on foot. They're very, very comfortable. I'm specifically a fan of the Salehi Bembury Crocs that released a couple years ago and now are continuing to release. They retail for a little bit more money. They're around $80, but you can find pairs on sale right now for like $50 to $60. So if you're going for a more hypey pair of Crocs, that's a good way to go. Of course, I've linked both the standard Crocs and the Salehi Bembury Crocs through the YouTube shopping tab and through the description below. But yeah, if you're special somebody who doesn't have a pair of Crocs, or maybe you don't have a pair of Crocs, maybe you're watching this video for you, I don't know. It's not a bad shoe to pick up, and it's inexpensive enough that even if you buy it and you end up not wearing it as much as you thought that you would, it's not gonna break the bank. I do genuinely think though that you're gonna end up throwing on your Crocs way more than you expect. But now let's move into pairs that are $100 and under. I'm sure you saw this coming, but starting things off, we've got the Vans Old School. This is one of my favorite pairs of shoes ever made, and for a while this pair of shoes was under $50, but I guess with inflation the price has slowly raised up to $70. But this is one of the most iconic pairs of sneakers ever made. Sure, it's a relatively simple pair of shoes, and it might not be as comfortable for all day wear as a pair of Crocs. If you're looking for a pair of shoes that you feel more comfortable going outside in and that actually look good with pretty much everything, the Vans Old School is a great way to go. Most of the colorways of this shoe feature a primarily canvas upper with suede on the toe and on the heel. The shoe comes with a vulcanized rubber midsole, which is fine underfoot, but you can buy the comfy cush version of the shoe where they give you a much softer foam. It does make the shoe a little bit taller, but it is much more comfortable for everyday wear. If you're looking for a pair that's slightly more modern and $5 more expensive, at $75 you can grab the Vans New School. This essentially is a Vans Old School that's been inflated. It features an incredibly puffy tongue, a puffier upper, and also this 3D side stripe. Overall, aesthetically, it is similar, but if you're going for that much puffier, more modern skate vibe, then the New School is a great way to go. Next up is the New Balance 530. This is one of New Balance's best-selling pairs of sneakers, and some people might look at this and be like, that's a shoe from the 2000s. And you're right. In 2024, there's been a huge resurgence of 2000s style running sneakers. People just love that look right now. Everyone from sneakerheads to models on the runway, that style of sneaker is just the hottest style out right now. And the New Balance 530 definitely fits within that aesthetic without breaking the bank, coming in at just $100. Personally, I love the white and silver colorway. I think it's super clean and super wearable, and honestly, it's probably the most comfortable shoe that we've talked about on the list so far. There are definitely more comfortable shoes coming up, don't worry. But if you're looking for a blend of style and comfort and you love New Balance and you don't want to break the bank, the 530 is a great way to go. Next up is the classic Adidas Samba. Even though this shoe is over 50 years old, the Adidas Samba is incredibly hot. Starting out life as an indoor soccer shoe or football shoe, depending on where you live, the Adidas Samba has quickly become one of the most popular sneakers ever made. And like this 2000s running sneaker trend that I was just talking about, the Samba trend is just as hot as it was last year. For $100, you can grab a simple and clean lifestyle pair of sneakers that everyone is wearing right now, and it comes in a ton of different colors. In fact, you can find a Samba in pretty much any material and pretty much any color. There's collaborations, there's special editions, editions, there's the basic black and white version, there's long tongues and short tongues. It doesn't matter what you're looking for, they have it in the Sambas. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that Sambas do tend to run a little bit narrow, so if you have wider feet, maybe the Samba isn't the way to go. And I also have friends with more standard width feet who just don't wear the Samba because they don't like how narrow it is. However, if you don't mind the narrowness of the shoe, it's a great way to go. Finally, rounding off the 100 and under tier, we've got the ASICS Gel 1130. I'm not gonna lie, this list has a lot of 2000s running sneakers, but that's just because that's what's popular right now. But most 2000s running sneakers, at least nowadays, are cheaper than a lot of the other shoes that we'll talk about later on in the video. Good news is, if you want a pair of these, you don't have to spend that much. And the ASICS Gel 1130 is a perfect example of that. This shoe comes in at a retail price of just $100. Now, to be fair, this is one of the more popular shoes on the list, so it's not the easiest shoe to find, but if you're looking for a great pair of 2000s running sneakers for $99, it's really hard to get something better than this. In fact, I personally would pick this over the New Balance 530, although I also think that's a great shoe. The ASICS Gel 1130 is the little brother to the ASICS Gel Kayano 14. It released in the mid-2000s and is a very comfortable shoe underfoot with surprisingly premium materials for a $100 sneaker. And visually, I love the way this sneaker looks. I think it's one of the better looking shoes on this list, specifically in the white and Clay Canyon colorway, which is a colorway that I have, and I actually think it is available on ASICS' website at the time of filming this video. Super clean shoe, very wearable, and relatively inexpensive. But really quick, before we get more expensive, let's get a little bit less expensive. This video is brought to you by my sock brand APTHCRY, the world's best socks and also your sneaker's favorite socks. These socks are incredibly soft, breathable, and comfortable because of our proprietary knit technology, ISO weave. Not only that, we just dropped our ugly sweater collection, which comes in 4 different ugly sweater colorways. And this Friday, we're dropping a pair of socks that actually are specifically designed to match a pair of sneakers that are coming up on this list, the Air Jordan 11 Legend Blues. Each pair of APTHCRY socks retails for $15, but because it is the holiday season, we've got a mystery box that retails for $100 and you get 10 pairs of socks, basically saving you $50. Not only that, some mystery boxes come with golden tickets inside and you can win things like APTHCRY gift cards, PlayStations, Xboxes, sneakers. So check out APTHCRY for yourself. We've got a bunch of incredible socks for great prices and a bunch of apparel like pretty much bro cats and shirts, really anything that you need besides sneakers to make yourself fresh for the season. So make sure to check us out through the YouTube shopping tab or through the links in the description below. But now we get to the shoes in the $150 and under tier. And let's start things off with a very popular pair of shoes, the Adidas Campus Double Zeros. So this shoe takes the simplicity of classic Adidas sneakers and puffifies it, kind of like the Vans New School. This shoe is inspired not by 2000s running sneakers, but actually by 2000s skateboarding shoes. From the side, this shoe looks like it could be a model like the Adidas Gazelle, but then when you look at it from the front, you're like, dang, that is a puffy shoe. And honestly, the puff makes it comfy. Like, I really love the way that this shoe feels on foot. The midsole, although simple, is still also kind of comfy. More so than the Sambas or the Vans. Not only that, for the price point of $110, you're getting a pair of shoes which are surprisingly premium. I mean, most colorways of this shoe come with this really nice suede upper, which actually feels way more expensive than I think it actually is. I personally dig the forest green colorway, but there's a black colorway and a bunch of other colorways that are also very popular, so grab what you like, and again, it's linked through the YouTube shopping tab on your screen. Next up, we've got a classic with the Nike Dunk Low. This shoe originally dropped back in the 80s as a basketball sneaker, but then over time became a skateboarding shoe and then a lifestyle classic. Now, while the Nike Dunk Low is not as popular as it was a few years ago in terms of resale prices, it's still a shoe that people love rocking every single day because of its simplicity and clean looks. Now, generally, this shoe retails for $115 if you're looking for one of the standard colorways like the Pandas or the white and blues or the white and greens or anything like that. And the good news is there's a ton of different colorways available of this shoe. But of course, there are special edition versions of this shoe which feature nicer materials or maybe are collaborations or something like that that are a bit more expensive. However, right now, because Nike has just made so many pairs of Nike Dunk Lows recently, you can find pairs of these shoes pretty easily at the Nike outlet or on resale sites online for well under retail. In fact, if you guys want to check the resale price of a bunch of different Nike Dunk Lows, I've made sure to link them through the YouTube shopping tab on your screen. The Nike Dunk Low is a great everyday sneaker and it's super easy to rock. Sort of in the same vein, we've got the Nike Air Force 1 Low. This shoe also retails for $115 and honestly is probably one of the most popular sneakers of all time. I mean, even if you're not a sneakerhead, you've probably had a pair of white Air Force 1 Lows. It's one of those shoes, it's like a pair of Vans that everyone's had at some point in their life. And one thing I love about the Air Force 1 Lows are how comfortable they are. You wouldn't expect them to be this comfortable because they look just like a pair of Nike Dunks, but they've got an air unit in the midsole, they've got a nice leather upper that's a little bit better padded than the Nike Dunk. All around, it's a more comfortable on-foot experience. Now, like the Nike Dunks, this shoe does come in a bunch of different colorways, but by far and away the most popular colorway of this shoe is the triple white colorway. It's also one of the easiest colorways to find, which is good news. And while sure, you probably can find pairs of these for under retail, generally they usually go for around retail because they're consistently popular. There's never really been a dip in popularity of the Air Force 1 Lows. After that, we've got one of the only modern basketball sneakers on the list, the Adidas AE1. The AE1 is Anthony Edwards' signature basketball sneaker with Adidas and has been one of the most popular sneakers of the entire year. I haven't officially dropped my sneaker of the year list yet, but I can tell you right now that this shoe is on the list. Probably not where you would think it would be, but it's definitely on the list. And whether you're wearing this shoe to play basketball in or to wear casually, it's one of those sneakers that looks good both on and off the court. Plus, it's comfy and relatively inexpensive. It comes in at $120, and there's a low top version that comes in at $110. And you might be saying to yourself, $110 for a basketball sneaker, at least nowadays, that's pretty cheap. I mean, when you look at LeBron's, which are $200, or some of the newer Jordan sneakers, which are all $200 plus, a pair of AE1s for $110, at least a low top version, that actually outperforms some of the more expensive basketball sneakers is an instant cop in my opinion. Now, because this shoe is so popular, it's not as easy to find pairs of these shoes at your local sneaker store because they generally sell out. However, you can find pairs of these shoes online in a couple different colorways, and you can find pairs that have sold out for around retail on sneaker resale sites. It's got great on-court traction, the cushion underfoot is very soft, and the upper is very supportive. It's amazing for basketball and solid for everyday wear. Following that up, we've got the Adidas Gazelle Indoor. This shoe sort of fits within that Adidas Samba trend that we were talking about earlier on in the video, and surprisingly, the Adidas Gazelle is a bit more popular right now than the Samba. This shoe, like the Adidas Samba, is incredibly popular. However, unlike the Samba, the main difference is the fact that the upper comes in primarily suede versus a leather. And I personally prefer the Gazelle to the Samba. I just think it's a better looking sneaker, and I love the variety of colors that you have with this shoe. There's something about the cut of the shoe too that I just prefer to the Samba. It's still narrow, but it's not as narrow as that shoe, and there's so many great collaborations on this shoe, like the Bad Bunnies or now the West NYCs. Even if you don't love Adidas, it's really hard to look at the Gazelle and not find a pair that you like. Because of the more premium materials on the upper of this shoe, specifically the suede, this shoe retails for $20 more than the Adidas Samba, coming in at $120. However, you can find certain pairs on sale for less than that on Adidas's website. Next up is the ASICS Gel NYC. So this shoe is a new sneaker and is a modern take on the classic 2000s running sneaker vibe, or I guess that ASICS look that everyone's going for. And what I love about this shoe is how well they do have a job of mashing up those two styles. Like, it really looks like it's meant to be together. The upper of the shoe is that classic 2000s running sneaker look, but the midsole and the outsole of the shoe leans towards a more modern look with some modern cushioning technologies and feels really good underfoot. In fact, it's one of the more comfortable pairs of ASICS that are not like some of their running models. This lifestyle model has also had its fair share of decent collaborations like the Hidden NY collaboration or the Bodega collaboration, and it's not impossible to find pairs of these for retail. Speaking of the retail price, they do come in at $130, which is still on the cheaper end of today's video, but not as cheap as some of the other shoes that we've talked about, so if budget is your main thing, maybe this is at the top end. Hey, for $130, you're getting a lot of shoe. After that is the Air Jordan 1 Low. For the past 5 or 6 years, the Jordan 1 was the most popular sneaker on the market, with the low top version being not as popular as the highs, but still being relatively popular. However, last year, the high top and the low top sort of switched in terms of popularity, the high top being not really popular anymore, and the low top becoming the most popular style of the shoe, which I guess makes some sense because it is easier to wear with shorts. I personally love the Air Jordan 1 High. It's my favorite shoe of all time, but the low top version is also pretty solid. But interestingly enough, throughout 2024, the Air Jordan 1 has really fallen off in popularity. That being said, the reason this shoe is still on the list is because it's still an excellent sneaker, and now you can buy some of the best colorways of this shoe for well under retail. Colorways like the Black Toe Lows, or the UNC Lows, or the Mocha Lows, a bunch of great shoes which 2 or 3 years ago would have gone for like $400, you can now buy for under retail. Now retail is $140, so if you want to buy a pair of these in store, that's generally what you're going to be paying. You can find pairs of these for very, very cheap online, like around $100. And as someone who loves the Air Jordan 1, I would pick this over the Nike Dunk any day of the week. It's got an air unit in the midsole, so it's a bit more comfortable. It's a slightly narrower shoe, but not by that much, and I just love the history of this shoe. I love Michael Jordan. I grew up with Michael Jordan. I'm in my 30s, so at least I got to see him play, not in person, but on TV. And it's one of those shoes that I just love, not just for nostalgia, but because I think it's one of the best designed shoes of all time. Seriously, colorways of this shoe that were incredibly hyped are now very, very affordable, so check out the Air Jordan 1 if you haven't yet. Next up, we've got the New Balance 9060. This shoe might be one of the most popular sneakers of 2024 and is definitely the most popular New Balance of 2024. I genuinely didn't realize how popular the 9060 was until I went to the mall a couple months ago and saw everyone wearing it. And I guess it kind of makes sense because not only is it a very comfortable silhouette, but it's also a good looking shoe. So like the ASICS that we just talked about, this shoe is a new silhouette that's a mashup of old and new styles. On the top of the shoe, you've got that classic New Balance look inspired from their 990 line, and the bottom half of the shoe is this all new modern midsole that's very wild looking. Whereas the bottom half of this shoe is this all new midsole construction that's very wild looking. And somehow the combination of the two different parts make a very appealing shoe. It's a great looking sneaker, it feels amazing on foot, and especially in this Castle Rock gray colorway, I love this sneaker. I didn't think I was gonna like it this much. I really love the Joe Freshgoods colorway, which is the first colorway of this shoe to drop a couple years ago, but man, even the GR colorways are fire. Now retail price wise, it is right at the top of the $150 tier. It's a $150 sneaker, so that makes sense, but it's definitely a shoe that's worth checking out if you're interested in this sneaker whatsoever. And if you're lucky, you might be able to find certain colorways of this shoe on sale. Finally, rounding off the $150 and under tier, we've got the ASICS Gel Kayano 14. Whenever I think of a pair of ASICS sneakers that released in the 2000s, like a lot of the shoes on this list, I think of the Gel Kayano 14s over anything else. And that's because this shoe is like the quintessential 2000s running sneaker. You've got the metallic silver overlays, you've got the mesh uppers, you've got the gel midsole. Everything about this shoe is classic 2000s, and I love the way that it looks. Like I mentioned earlier on in the video with the ASICS Gel 1130s, this shoe is actually the big brother to that shoe. That shoe was released, again, back in the mid-2000s as sort of the cheaper alternative to this sneaker. However, if you're willing to spend the extra $50 and spend basically $150, the Gel Kayano 14 is going to give you a bit more comfort and honestly a bit more premium materials. I think out of every shoe that I've talked about so far in today's video that isn't a slide or a croc, this is probably the pair of shoes that I've worn the most. It's comfortable, it's good looking, and it's trendy. I just love the Gel Kayano 14s. Actually, the Gel Kayano 14s is probably my favorite pair of ASICs. There's not a huge amount of colorways of this shoe available, and the colorways that are available tend to be more difficult to find in stores because it's such a popular shoe, but for $150 you are getting a lot of shoe. Moving into the $200 and under category, we've got the On Cloud Tilt. On is a running sneaker company based in Switzerland that's just recently broken into sort of the hypebeast market. And I think the shoe that really did it for them was the On Cloud Tilt, a shoe that they actually used Zendaya to market a little bit in the beginning, and it's become one of the most popular pairs of Ons. I really love this shoe for a lot of reasons. First of all, the shoe is specifically designed for everyday wear. It's not a running sneaker, it's not like a training shoe, it's specifically an everyday walking shoe. Like pretty much every other pair of On sneakers, you've got a Cloud Tech midsole, which essentially are those punch outs through the midsole that act as almost air cushions, and then surrounding those punch outs, you've got this super soft foam. The foam with the punch outs creates a very, very plush underfoot feel, and this might be the softest underfoot shoe on the list. I love the simple and minimal aesthetics of this shoe. I love how comfortable it is underfoot, and I also like the fact that this shoe is essentially a slip-on without being a slip-on, and that's because the laces that they use aren't actually tieable. They're sort of knotted at the ends, so they still look like laces and they still act like laces, but the shoe still allows you to slide your foot into it without actually having to tie any laces. If you've been thinking about getting into On sneakers and you want a pair that you can rock every day, this is a great way to go, and it's incredibly comfortable underfoot. Now it does come in at $160, so it's obviously not the cheapest shoe on the list, but it's one of those shoes that I don't think you'll regret spending the money on. Actually, to be fair, that is the case for all of the shoes on the list. Next up is the New Balance 1906R. The 1906R is a modernization of the classic New Balance 1906, which was named after the year that New Balance was founded. Now to clarify, the silhouette wasn't created in 1906, it was just named after 1906. This modernized R version of the shoe features that 2000s running style because it's a 2000s running sneaker, at least the non-R version was. The upper comes with really interesting overlays that are kind of intricate but also are still very clean. And for some reason, I don't know if it's because New Balance was giving this to collaborators or they specifically chose the silhouette, but for whatever reason, there's a bunch of collaborations on 1906Rs. You've got the Action Bronsons, you've got the ALDs, you've got the This Is Never That collaboration. There's a ton more that I'm not mentioning, but it's got a lot of different collaborations, a bunch of different colorways, and you can pretty much find any style of this shoe that you'd be looking for. In fact, they even make a loafer version of this shoe, which is like, why would you do that? But apparently people love it. I don't get it, but they do. While the 9060s may be the most popular sneaker that New Balance makes this year, the 1906R either is tied with it or is a close second. It's a great looking sneaker. It's very comfortable on foot. Maybe not as soft as the On's underfoot, but still very comfortable. And for $155, it's definitely solidly in that mid-range sneaker price, but it won't break the bank. After that, we've got the Nike Zoom Vomero 5. Yeah, I know it's another 2000s running sneaker, but it is pretty different than any of the offerings from ASICS or New Balance. It doesn't come with those same super intricate and small metallic silver overlays. Instead, it still comes with that technical runner vibe, but it's much cleaner. It comes in a lot more monochromatic colorways, and in my opinion, it's one of the most comfortable shoes on the list. Since this shoe was reintroduced to the public back in 2019, Nike has been spamming us with colorways of the Nike Zoom Vomero 5. And while I don't mind that because I love the sneaker and I'd love to have a bunch of different colorways of this shoe, it means that the resale price of this shoe has completely plummeted, which is actually a great thing because the retail price of this sneaker is $160, but you can find pretty much any colorway of this shoe for well under retail, sometimes at the Nike outlet, sometimes in Finish Line, but mostly on resale sites. The prices of the Vomero 5s on the resale market vary wildly depending on color and size. I've seen some pairs go for right around retail and other pairs go for like $60 depending on the colorway. My favorite colorway is the Supersonic colorway, which released, I believe, last year for actually a higher retail price point of $175 versus the standard $160. But right now, even that colorway, the most popular Vomero 5 colorway, you can still grab for under retail. And if you guys want to check out this shoe for yourself, I made sure to link it through the YouTube shopping tab on your screen. There's tons of colorways, they're incredibly comfortable on foot, and I think the upper of this shoe is probably more breathable than the ons. While the midsole is not as soft, the upper might actually make this a contender for one of the most comfortable shoes on this list. Next up is the Salomon XT6. So I'm not going to lie to you and say that I've been on Salomon for years. I just recently got on the Salomon train, and I'm pretty stoked about it. The XT6 is one of their more popular models, and from what I can tell, it seems like a lifestyle hiking sneaker, not a running sneaker like some of the other shoes on this list. That being said, it is still incredibly comfortable on foot, and some of the colorways of this shoe are absolutely fire. Like this all-white colorway with the colorful tongue. It's sick. Now, maybe I'm late to the XT6, I don't know. I know the shoe was incredibly popular for the last 2 years, and I just recently got a pair over the last 6 months. I love it, but it might not be as popular as it once was, and unfortunately, it is a bit more expensive at $200. In fact, it's at the top end of this list. But I do think if you're looking for an everyday sneaker that's comfortable on foot, can be hiked in if you want to, and it has a modern minimal style, the XT6 is a great way to go. And while sure, I personally prefer the all-white colorway over the other colorways of this shoe, any of the colorways are fine, and any of the colorways are a great way to get into Salomon if you haven't yet. But then rounding off the $200 and under tier, we've got the J-Tip Saucony Pro Grid Omni 9. So this shoe is not like a lot of the shoes that we've talked about on this list. This is a specific colorway that I'm talking about. The Saucony Pro Grid Omni 9 is a great shoe all around, but I think for most sneakerheads out there, the one that they're most interested in is the J-Tips collaboration. Now this collab released earlier this year in 2 different colorways. My personal favorite is the one that you're seeing on screen right now, the tan colorway, but the other colorway is also very clean, and I personally love this shoe. I just dropped a video on my top 10 collaboration sneakers of 2024, and this shoe made an appearance at number 2 on the list. The inspiration behind the collaboration is a to-do list. You're supposed to wear this shoe while you're completing your to-do list because it's comfortable and good looking. You're supposed to wear this shoe while you complete your to-do list because it's a comfortable everyday sneaker. But my favorite part about this shoe is the mashup of colors and materials and patterns used on the shoe. J-Tips is a Bronx-based artist who collaborated with Boston-based Saucony on a pair of sneakers that really took the sneaker world by force. For the past few decades, the sneaker world has been dominated by Jordans and Nike, but recently ASICS, New Balance, and now Saucony are really making an appearance as some of the juggernauts in the sneaker world. Adidas has always been there too, especially when they were with Kanye West, but we're not talking about that right now. This J-Tip Saucony collab is incredibly eye-catching, very comfortable on foot, and if you're looking for a pair of sneakers that's really going to get people's attention, this is a great way to go. Now, unfortunately, this shoe did completely sell out when it released, and it's selling for more than the retail price of this shoe, so because of that, I'm going to go off the resale price of this shoe, which is around $200 depending on size and colorway. I think the median price, depending on your size, is around $200. I bought my pair for $180 because I'm a size 9, but then you've got like size 14s going for like $220, so I sort of tried to land in the middle. I think like size 10s and 10.5s are all around $200. So if you're interested in this shoe, check it out through the YouTube shopping tab on the screen or through the description below. You're gonna have to buy it for resale, but generally you can expect to pay around $200. But now we get to the $250 and under category, or as I like to call it, Jordans. First up is the Air Jordan 4 Military Blue. So this shoe dropped during the middle of the year for $215, and as of right now has pretty much entirely sold out. However, Jordan Brand made a bunch of these, so the resale price of this shoe is not that much higher than retail. In fact, you can generally find pairs of the Military Blues for around $230 on resale sites. The reason this shoe is so popular is because 1, it's an Air Jordan 4, and 2, because it's an OG Air Jordan 4, meaning that it's one of the first colorways it ever released. 5 or so years, Jordan Brand re-releases some of their more popular colorways. They call them retros, and this of course is a retro of the Military Blue 4 colorway, and it's actually been a minute since we've last gotten this shoe. It features a white leather upper with blue accents and is a super wearable pair of Air Jordan 4s, and while yes, it does look a lot like other pairs of Air Jordan 4s that are reselling for significantly under retail, it's technically different. And if you're not a sneakerhead, you probably don't get it, but that's fine. If you're buying your sneakerhead friend a pair of sneakers and they love Jordans and they love OG Jordans, this is a great way to go. Just make sure they don't already have it because it's a very popular shoe. Next up is a pair of sneakers that hasn't yet released at the time of dropping this video, but it will release very, very soon, and that's the Air Jordan 11 Legend Blue. This is another retro Jordan. It's an all-white pair of Air Jordan 11s, and it last released back in 2014. It's actually been 10 years since we last got this shoe. Now, what's crazy about this shoe is that it's dropping for a retail price of $230 when it officially drops on December 14th. However, for whatever reason, maybe because Jordan Brand made like 1 million plus pairs of these, you can buy pairs right now for under retail on the resale market, like a week before it even drops. I've seen pairs in my size go for like $180, $190, $200 in some cases. You can check them all out through the YouTube shopping tab on your screen. But this is one of those examples of a shoe that's amazing, that has a lot of hype behind it, but for some reason is not reselling for anything, and you can usually find for under retail. So while yes, it should be relatively easy to get on release day, and maybe that's the best way to go for you if you want to walk into your local Foot Locker and grab this shoe, but if you're willing to wait a couple weeks to actually get it in your hands, buy it for resale. You'll save some money, usually around $20 after fees, and you're still getting the same shoe, but for cheaper than you would from Nike. And like I said before, APTHCRY, my sock brand, is dropping a pair of socks that perfectly matches a pair of Air Jordan 11 Blues. So if you're trying to grab that shoe, grab a pair of Magic APTHCRY socks and you'll be good to go. After that is another pair of Air Jordan 4s, the Air Jordan 4 Fear. Now, unlike the other Air Jordan 4s that we just talked about, this is not an OG colorway of the shoe, meaning that it wasn't one of the original release colorways of the shoe. Instead, this colorway first dropped back in 2013 as a special edition. And this 2024 release of the shoe is actually the first time that we've gotten this colorway of the Fear 4s back. And for some reason, even though the initial release of the shoe was incredibly hyped up, this time around, it's still kind of sitting in stores. Now, the retail price of this shoe is $215, and you can still buy it on Nike's website, on Finish Line's website, Foot Locker, pretty much anywhere. However, like the Air Jordan 11s that we just talked about, this shoe is selling for under retail on resale sites. So you can grab it for like $40 off in some cases in some sizes. I personally love this sneaker. The materials are solid, the colorway is clean and very wearable. The entire shoe's theme is kind of like a gradient. It fades from like a white on the bottom of the shoe up to a black on the top of the shoe. You've also got splatter print on the midsole. All around, it's just a very, very clean sneaker, and one that I think for the price is a must cop for sneakerheads. Next up is another pair of Air Jordan 4s, the A Ma Maniére Air Jordan 4 While You Were Sleepings. So this shoe is a collaboration between Jordan Brand and A Ma Maniére, a sneaker boutique based down in Georgia, I believe. And the shoe comes with ultra premium materials. Now, to be fair, it is technically a women's only release, but it does come in extended sizing, which means that it comes in both men's and women's sizing, but you kind of have to be careful about how you look at the sizing and the size tag, because they have women's sizes first and then the men's size. But this is probably one of the most premium pairs of Air Jordan 4s that have released all year. It comes in a light pink nubuck material with a quilted sock liner and purple accents, and it's just a very different, very high-end feeling take on the Air Jordan 4. Now, because of that, the retail price of this shoe was higher than a standard pair of Air Jordan 4s, but for some reason, the resale price of this shoe is lower than the resale price of other pairs of Air Jordan 4s. You can grab a pair of these right now online for like $220, which is crazy because the last time that A Ma Maniére collaborated with Jordan Brand on a pair of Air Jordan 4s, that shoe was going for like $400, and I think this shoe looks better than that shoe. It just goes to show you that the hype of Jordan sneakers is not what it once was a couple years ago. I don't think this is going to last forever. Sneakers tend to be cyclical, so Jordans are really popular for a couple years, then they're not so popular, and then they're popular once again. Right now, New Balances, Asics, Adidas, brands like that are the popular brands. That doesn't mean that Jordans aren't still popular, that people still aren't buying Jordans, that sneakerheads still don't love Jordans, but it does mean that you can grab pairs of Jordans for way cheaper than you would have had to if they had released a couple years earlier. So in my opinion, as a sneakerhead, this is a good thing because you can save a lot of money and still grab the sneakers that you want without all the trouble. I absolutely love this release. I think it's one of the best sneaker collaborations of the year. In fact, it made my top 10 sneaker collaboration list. I think it was like number 7? I could be wrong about that, but either way, great sneaker, definitely worth picking up. Next up is one of my favorite sneakers of all time, the Air Jordan 3 Black Cement. So this shoe is one of the original colorways of the Air Jordan 3s that released back in 1988, and the last time the Jordan Brand retroed this sneaker was back in 2018. However, in 2018, this shoe completely sold out. It resold for like $300 to $400 at the time. Now, on this newer release of the shoe, which looks identical to the 2018 pair, it's sitting on shelves. I love the Black Cement 3. It is my second favorite sneaker of all time after the Bread Jordan 1s. This shoe is incredible, and the fact that Jordan Brand just made a bunch of these and pushed them out to the market and they're not fully selling out is amazing. And you might be like, why is that amazing? Well, I just told you why it was amazing, because you can grab pairs of these for under retail. It's great. Pairs of these are probably sitting at your local sneaker store and sitting online. It's great. You can grab the Black Cement 3, one of the iconic Air Jordan colorways and sneakers, for retail or below. In fact, you can grab this shoe online right now for like $180. The retail price of this shoe is $220, so you're saving $40 before fees. It's a great deal. And the Black Cement 3s are one of those sneakers that just will never go out of style. Sneakerheads will always love this shoe. It's always going to be an icon, and I think in a couple years, this shoe shoe's gonna resell because people are gonna be mad that they missed out on this release. They're gonna be mad they didn't double up. And I just feel like it's one of those sneakers you should have doubled up on. I doubled up. I spent a lot of money on this shoe. And you know what? I don't regret it yet. So check out the Black Cement 3s if you haven't yet. If you're trying to start your Jordan collection, this is the perfect way to start. Next up is a collaboration New Balance sneaker. I know we're switching things up a little bit from the Jordans. It's the Action Bronson New Balance 1906R Rosewater. Now we just talked about the 1906R earlier on in the video, and all of the same things apply for this shoe. The only difference is that this is a limited collaboration version of the shoe. One of the best sneakers of the year in my opinion. And if you're an Action Bronson fan or you like the way the sneaker looks, it is a must cop. I love this shoe because Action Bronson took a classic sneaker like the 1906 and changed it up and made it look almost completely different, but in a lot of ways it's even cleaner than the original. The colors used on this shoe are wild. I love them. The materials are great. It's still incredibly comfortable on foot, and it's probably one of the best collaborations of the entire year. Now unfortunately, because this shoe is a collaboration that completely sold out, you can only buy it for resale, but from what I've found, the average price for different sizes of this shoe seems to be around $230. So if you want to grab a pair of shoes around the $230 to $250 price point, you don't want to grab Jordans, this is a good way to go. It's also definitely more comfortable than any of the Jordans that I talked about. And then finally, rounding out this $250 tier with yet another pair of Jordans. We had to finish it off with a pair of Jordans. We've got the Air Jordan 4 Bread Reimagines. So this shoe is a reimagining of one of the most iconic Air Jordan 4 colorways of all time, the Bread colorway. Of course, this shoe is based on the OG Bread Air Jordan 4s, which first released back in 1989. However, this shoe changes things up pretty dramatically by changing up the material used on the upper of this shoe from a suede to a leather. Now, initially, people didn't love this change. They thought that it was too much of a change from the original shoe, and while yes, it does pretty dramatically change the way the sneaker looks, more so than I would have expected, it actually makes the sneaker a bit more wearable because you can actually wear the sneaker in the rain. Unlike the original pair where you really couldn't because it would ruin the upper. Now I don't advocate wearing your really nice sneakers in the rain anyway, because any shoes that you wear in the rain are going to be not as nice after you wore them in the rain than they were before you wore them in the rain. So I still wouldn't wear these in pouring rain, but in my opinion they're going to be a bit more durable than the standard pair. And honestly, I kind of like the aesthetics of these shoes a bit more than the original pair because that leather has a bit of a shine to it that the suede just didn't have. Now it's not all the time that I prefer leather to suede. In fact, a lot of times I prefer suede to leather depending on the shoe and the color, but for this particular shoe, I think this reimagining of the Air Jordan 4 Bread is actually fire. It's also one of the most popular sneaker releases of the entire year. So if you're trying to grab a pair of sneakers for your sneakerhead friend that loves Jordans, this is a great way to go. Now this shoe retailed for $215 initially, but as you probably could have guessed, it completely sold out. However, you can grab pairs of these on the resale market for around $240 depending on size. But now we get to the final category, $250 plus. Now I'll be honest with you, if I'm buying a gift for somebody, if it's not like an immediate family member, I'm not spending more than $250. I gotta be honest. If any of my family that are watching this that aren't my wife or my daughter, I'm sorry, you're not getting something that's over $250. I gotta be real. But hey, if you're buying something for like your son or your daughter, or maybe your wife or your boyfriend or husband or whoever it is, $250 is not a terrible price to pay for a pair of sneakers. But let's be real, you're probably not gonna spend like $1,000 on somebody else for a pair of sneakers. Maybe you are, but I'm not. So I'm not gonna even include that sort of category of sneakers on the list. I'm just gonna give you guys two of the most popular sneaker releases of the year that are both over $250. And the first of those two sneakers is the Futura Nike SB Dunk Low. This sneaker, not to ruin it for you guys, is my sneaker of the year. You might have already guessed that because I've said it a bunch throughout the year and I already had it as my #1 spot in my top 10 collaborations of 2024, but this shoe is absolutely incredible. As a sneakerhead and someone who's loved Nike Dunks, this is a collaboration that just is like the top of the top, the cream of the crop, the bibbity bop. This shoe's awesome. Futura has collaborated with Nike for the last couple decades on some of the most iconic sneaker collaborations of all time, and this time around he's released a new collaboration that in my opinion is one of his best. The sneaker comes with a white canvas upper accented by these beautifully painted overlays, or at least it's a printing of his artwork on the overlays, but it looks painted. And it's just such a unique and colorful sneaker, and it makes you feel like you're wearing a piece of art on your foot, because you literally are. And for sneakerheads out there, that FL, Futura Laboratories logo on the heel of the shoe is one of those iconic logos that you really only see on like the craziest and most expensive pairs of collaborations. So the fact that in 2024, we're able to get an official Futura Laboratories collaboration on a pair of Nike SB Dunk Lows, it doesn't cost like $20,000, it's pretty amazing. And the fact that this collaboration is as good looking as the pairs that cost $20,000, it's like, if you're not a sneakerhead and you haven't been following Nike SB Dunks for a while, you might not get it, and that's fine. I think if you like the history of the shoe, you're gonna love this sneaker. Now, as you probably would have guessed, this shoe is completely sold out. It sold out the minute that it released. I think it dropped for like, I don't remember the retail price, like $130, $140, I'm not sure exactly what it was. But currently it resells for around $300 to $400 depending on your size. My size, a size 9, goes for like $299. So exactly at the $300 price point. And for me personally, I would pay that price any day of the week. In fact, the pair that I bought 6 months ago for around $1,000. But hey, you know what? It was worth it. To be fair, I bought the shoe before it even released to do a video on it, and I got a bunch of content out of it, so I'm not like too mad about it, but you know, sometimes prices can drop. Next up is the Travis Scott Air Jordan 1 Low Medium Olive. Travis Scott has been collaborating with Jordan Brand since 2018, and he's released some of the most popular pairs of Jordans of all time. Like I mentioned earlier on when we were talking about the Air Jordan 1, the Air Jordan 1 Low became the more popular version of the silhouette, probably because of Travis Scott. This particular colorway released this year alongside 2 other colorways, the Canary colorway and the Velvet Brown colorway. Both are decent colorways, but neither of which are as popular as this colorway, and I definitely think this white and olive look is incredibly wearable. The main detail that really catches people's attention is the backwards Nike swoosh, which is something that Travis Scott popularized. He's not the first person to do it, but he definitely popularized it. And this is one of those like hype beast style sneakers. If you're trying to grab the hypiest pair of sneakers that released this year, this might not be it because you probably have to spend a couple $1,000s to buy the hypiest hypebeast sneaker that dropped the entire year, but this is definitely the most attainable. And I'm sure a lot of kids out there have asked their parents for this shoe because of how popular it is. It's a very clean sneaker. It did retail for just $140, but unfortunately, because of the popularity, because of the hype, you're gonna have to spend around $500 for it, which is not cheap, obviously. Is it worth the $500? From a material point of view, probably not, but if you look at it as more of a collectible, which I think most sneakerheads do, that's just a going rate for it. That's what you're gonna have to pay. And if someone in your life wants this shoe, that's probably what you're gonna have to pay for it. And if you guys wanna check it out for yourself, YouTube shopping tab right there. But hey, it's one of the hottest shoes of the year. So unfortunately, for the hottest shoes of the year, you're gonna have to pay a very high price point. But if you made it to this point in the video, let me know in the comment section down below which one of these picks was your favorite and if you feel like I missed anything. But as always, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't yet, and I'll see you all in the next one.